Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dapper Barbarian Show. This one's going to be a little bit longer format, wrestling with a question that's been near and dear to my heart, something that I've been working through for a long time, and I hope that you can all benefit a little bit from it. And that's, is your house in order? It's something that maybe you put in slightly different language depending on your culture and upbringing, but it's something that all men struggle with, and ladies as well. But it's something that I know that keeps a lot of us up at night, something that the culture is speaking into that we need to push back a little bit on and define for ourselves. If you're here, good news. There's a good chance that your house is already more in order than the world is going to tell you. So let's think about this for a second. You got up this morning, you showed up. It's not nothing, all right? Right now, you're investing time in becoming a better version of yourself and for the people that you love. And that really matters. That isn't behavior of a man who's checked out. That's behavior of a man who gives a damn and he's still in the fight. And that means more than most people are willing to tell you right now because honestly, most people are only going to tell you and support you after you succeed. It's no secret to anyone who's been paying attention, but I'll let you in on it anyways, that the culture has been around this for quite a while. There is a coordinated, sustained, and deliberate effort to convince men, and especially our young boys, that they are the problem, that their confidence is arrogance, and that their strength is aggression, that their leadership is controlling, that somehow by default, they're one wrong move away from being the villain of the story. Hell, they are redefining what the villain is into a complicated good guy instead of the traditional bad guy role that we grew up with in most of the Hollywood storylines these days and heavily in children's books and movies. So, what happened to the good guys kicking the bad guys' asses and calling it a day? Honestly, once you see it, you can't really unsee it. All right. The father of young Sheldon, who can't seem to get anything right without someone rescuing him from his own incompetence. Homer Simpson, every bumbling, well meaning, helpless dad in every sitcom for the last 30 years who exists primarily as a comedic obstacle for all the smart people to get around, even the kids. These are not harmless jokes. These are repetitive and consistent messaging across every screen your kids are plugged into each and every day for hours. The message to young boys is super clear. You will grow up to be an idiot no matter how hard you work or how much you give. You can't trust your father because he doesn't know what he's doing either, right? You might as well not even try because you'll mess it up and the pretty girl will be right there to point it out. The message to young girls is just as clear and just as loud. There's nothing out there, including spiritually, that you can trust for yourself. Boss bitch, right? And if you do find something worth trusting, a man, faith, or a structure, you probably are being manipulated. You're just too young to know, so trust us, we know better. Girls, guard yourself, depend on no one because nobody's coming. That's the culture raising your children right now. And the message and its inevitable end isn't by accident. So if you're asked today, do you have your house in order? What does that even mean? All right. This isn't a criticism. Hell, I'm working on this each and every day myself. But if this calls one of you up or one of you even out, if that's what it takes, then let's talk about it. Because most of you have been told you have nothing to bring to the table because they fear your voice. Perspective is what we seek here today. The battle is won when you convince your adversary to stay at home. And that's what they want to do. Before we get into those specifics, pardon the interruption, barbarians. If you haven't already, a like, follow, or subscribe goes a long way and costs you nothing. This show, the Dapper Barbarian Show, is my own project. This is something that I pour myself into because I truly believe in these conversations. If you want to help make that better, our Patreon link is attached, and your support there goes a long way to allowing me to invest more into the show, be more hands-on with you, and to grow this thing the right way. So thank you to all of you that do. Separately, I want to take a moment for something that's far, far more important than this podcast. I want to thank you genuinely to all of you that continue to support Mission 991. You're the reason that we continue to stay in the fight, and your faithfulness matters a lot more than you know. For those of you who are new to the cause, in 2022, I founded Mission 991, an anti-trafficking and exploitation nonprofit that was born out of a need that I couldn't just walk past. Edmund Burke once said, "All it takes for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing." We can't do it all, but we can continue to do the next right thing in hopes that it creates space for someone to begin to heal. Sex and labor trafficking is a three-part industry, a three-legged stool, if you will, and it stands on a trafficker, the client, and the victim. Each of those legs requires its own strategic response, but the end goal is always the same: freedom from abuse, exploitation, and addiction. At Mission 991, we partner with agencies and tailor our response to where that need is greatest: education and awareness, field digital intelligence gathering and analysis, and victim aftercare. We leave the 99 in pursuit of the one, and we raise our voices for the ones who can't, so that we can rejoice with heaven at their safe return. If you're not yet a shepherd, I want to ask you to consider it. A recurring gift, even the small one of an overpriced coffee that you were going to buy anyways, goes directly toward the basic care and long-term rehabilitation of victims in our areas of responsibility and in the pursuit of them. That's the trade-off that I'm asking: a little bit of your comfort for someone else's freedom and for the ability to them feel human again. So you can learn more about what we do and become a one-time or recurring shepherd at mission991.org. Thank you so much. I want to put some framework around this whole idea, because everywhere and everything that we're covering today, fatherhood, marriage, the man in the mirror, all of it involves some kind of suffering. The suffering of things not going the way that you planned, of falling and getting back up, of doing the next right thing when no one's looking, of speaking truth when you know that it costs you everything. The Christian truth, with a capital T, doesn't sell you a fairy tale. It doesn't pretend that suffering isn't happening. It tells you what to do with it. Romans 5:3-4 tells us we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Read that again carefully. Suffering doesn't produce hope directly. Endurance is the muscle that gets built first, right? Endurance produces character. Character produces hope. That's the process, and it takes time. It's not comfortable, and it can't be a shortcut. We also know that building muscle hurts, right? Ask anyone that's done a New Year's resolution and failed in the past. The man who has his house in order is not the man who avoided suffering. He's the man who let suffering do its work, who got up when they told him to stay down, and he stayed in the fight long enough for the endurance and the character to build and the character to become something worth hoping from. This is why I'm so against the whole modern church habit of calling kids up to ministry when they're 16 and then propping them up as their spokesman, never getting the opportunity to go out there and have an adventure, and more importantly, to fail and to be needed and to become a true leader. You don't get that kind of character without the endurance and without being tested. You don't get the endurance without the suffering. There's no shortcut here. Most fathers I know are trying. That's not a low bar, all right? By any means, in a culture where they are actively working to convince your kids and your women that you're irrelevant, trying consistently and showing up anyways is the resistance. Defiance in the face of defeat is the character that burns inside all of us. There's a reason that it costs us so much emotionally and mentally to just play along when every day deep down you know that it's not really living in the truth and it matters. That's why it costs us so much mentally and emotionally to just play along each and every day when you know deep down that it isn't really living in the truth. That matters. So, what does real fatherhood look like anyway? Would you recognize it if you saw it? Would you recognize it in yourself? And would you measure yourself by the same Hollywood fantasy that others are measuring you by? When you do finally see it, you will also see all the ways that culture is working against you. And then, will you learn to defend against it, or are you going to be the victim-minded drama queen about it? So to start with, a child who has been raised in a low expectation environment, and let's be really honest here, today's culture is manufacturing those environments at scale. They will test each and every boundary you set, and it will be a continuously moving bar based on people's emotions and not logic or experience. This is not because you're failing. It's because that's what children do. When they haven't been given consistent structure, they push to find that boundary. Your job is to be the cliff, that last impassable object. And let's be honest also, too many of these adult-aged children masquerading as professional leaders, politicians, and leaders in our world today. And it's because too many of us in the past have failed to stand our ground. Calmly, we have to state what is true in the situation because truth speaks for itself without exception and without backing down and without making it dramatic about our pain. Trust me, as soon as you make the conversation about you can be completely written off. In case you didn't get the memo on this, a man's pain is by far the least important issue to hang your case on. Diana Baumrind, if I'm getting that name right, spent decades at Berkeley studying how different parenting approaches produce different outcomes. No surprise there. Her research, which she replicated across 40 years and multiple cultures, identified one clear winner: authoritative parenting. To be clear, not authoritarian, which is all control and no warmth. Also, not permissive or free-range parenting, as so many of your friends without kids are going to be super quick to advise you of, but that's all warmth and no structure, so it's not that either. No, authoritative, meaning high expectations and genuine warmth at the same time. Crazy, right? You can love your kids and spouse and expect greatness out of them. Hold them to a standard for your family and your name's legacy. Wild. The data, though, showed that children of permissive parents were not happier or more confident. They were more impulsive, less resilient, and less equipped for a world that doesn't accommodate them anyway. At least not the way mommy and daddy did. So let's get one thing very, very clear for those of you that don't realize it. If you are annoyed by your kids, so will everyone else. And they will have no friends and no meaningful relationships except for the other emotionally stunted people they trauma bond with. Jordan Peterson in 12 Rules for Life, he put it this way: do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. They're smarter than you can imagine. They know if you're tolerating them or loving them in the same way you can tell from your spouse if it's real or not. And to be honest, I sometimes look at the relationships some of the parents in my circles have and I envy them, honestly. The phone calls, the dinner plans, but their kids always seem to need something. I have plenty of regrets, but one of them is not my kids' self-sufficiency. They are ready for this world and they don't need me for it. I hope they know that if they do, they have someone that they can call on, and I also will be there for them, and they know it. Because in every relationship, I want to be wanted rather than needed. In the family, in the end, it's us against the world. Always has been. Even when the world seems to be winning, that story hasn't yet been concluded for any of us. So I won't lie. When I see the cruise ships some are living on compared to the efficient but sometimes cold battleship I seem to be chained to, I can't help but think it would be nice to be chosen from time to time. No different than intimacy with a partner. But we take what we get and we hold the line. We regroup and plan for tomorrow to be better, but not at the cost of what we've been given to steward. I truly want to recognize and have gratitude for the many gifts in my life, along with the love and comfort that God has allowed me. But I never want that to be in place of or in expectation of it. More importantly, every man listening and every man in your circle has a version of that same cycle. It's why we can't relax and enjoy the good stuff, knowing that it won't last. Because you get it right for a while, consistent, patient, showing up the way you know you should, and you start to feel good. You start thinking, I got this, you know? And then something happens. You're tired, distracted, work is hard, the wife's demanding more things, the renovation, the new car to replace the worn out one, more, but always more attention. You can't give both, right? Something has to give. But for a while, we always try to carry both, thinking that for some reason, this time it's going to be different. And then you take a hit from a direction you didn't see coming. Maybe the heater goes out. The power steering pump goes out. A debt from another time calls and collects. And you're back to zero, wondering how the hell you got there. But damn, does it feel familiar, right? Hello, darkness, my old friend. The trick is to fall forward. Every time you pick yourself up, find your direction, and do the next right thing. But we don't start from zero, do we? We have experience this time, and we rearm and take it into the next battle. Falling is not the opposite of leading, quitting is. A man who falls and gets back up and he's still in the fight, a man who decides that failing is just proof that he can't win, he might as well not even try, right? That's his decision, and essentially he's handed the enemy a weapon and pointed it at his own household. If you know me, you've heard me say many, many times that words mean things. We have to own our words, our deeds, and if we do, then we're not puppets and slaves. So we practice, and practice makes perfect, right? That's bullshit. Practice makes permanent. What you rehearse in your behaviors, your habits, and your words coming out of your mouth day after day is what you're becoming. That joke, that you made around the office or the break room that you make about yourself all the time, story of my life. I never get this right. Classic me. Haha. Everyone laughs and goes about their day. Nobody says anything. But you said it. The words are out there. Your kids heard it. They're watching you practice who you are. The research is super clear on this. Repeated negative self-labeling, even as humor, it hardens into identity over time, and you become what you rehearse. The same goes for what you say about your kids and your spouse. Ladies, pay attention here. A child who is told in any tone, even jokingly, that they're the difficult one, that they never listen, that they can't do anything right, they absorb those labels as facts. Your man's no different, not because he's a child. No, it's because you're that important in his life. Your voice carries weight, and you have to take accountability for that. I don't give a damn if you want it or not. That's not the point here. You can't have the house and storybook ending and not earn it. If you don't speak into your man's life, someone else will. And why, dear God, would you relinquish that precious position to the enemy or to the girl at work? This isn't because they're weak. It's because children and people in general are built to take the words of the people that matter the most to them as truth. What's the alternative? To be suspicious of everyone you love? No, we are hardwired pack animals, and we live and die with our tribe. Isolation only serves the enemy. So watch what you practice. In your behavior and in your language, your kids are taking notes. Like the country song, Watching You by Rodney Atkins, right? Love that one. Where the kid, he swears at dropping his fries and he also prays at night. I've been watching you, Dad. Ain't that cool? Man, if I'd only appreciated the wisdom of that at a younger age. But I didn't. And here we are. We drive on. Ladies, I also see you, and I'm going to try to ask you to hang in there with me for a few more minutes because what I'm about to say to your man is also for you, just from a slightly different angle. Ephesians 5:25, and before everyone switches off, because they've heard this twisted in both directions before, let me break down what it actually says and what it actually costs in context of this conversation. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. As Christ loved the church. You don't have to be a Christian to know what that cost him. Everything. Not most things, not the things that he was comfortable giving up. Literally everything. He went to the cross for people who didn't deserve it. That's you and me. People who hadn't earned it, and in many cases didn't even want it. This is the standard that Paul holds up for husbands. This isn't headship or leadership at a country club. It's not leadership as a management title or daddy's privileged status. It's a love that is willing to be spent completely for someone else's comfort, safety, and advancement, not your own, which flies in the face of everything out there today on the self-help shelf and the podcasts that basically repackages you do you, right, homie? So now I understand that this is a heavy ask. I've been married a few times. I know what it is to try to love someone well and feel like you're pouring into a dry well when you're being used to fill a God-sized hole in their souls, and you desperately want to be enough, but you're not, and you never will be. I also know what it's like to be the dry well, to numb and distract and reach for snake oils for relief and emptiness that you feel inside each and every night. Neither side of that is comfortable to acknowledge, but I promise you that the antidote is radical acceptance of the truth. What I've learned comes from experience, my lived experience, and the research confirms it. Dr. John Gottman was a man who tackled this from a professional angle and literally spent 40 years in what became known as the Love Lab of the University of Washington. Yes, that's a real thing. Watching couples interact and predicting over time with 90% accuracy which ones would get divorced. Some of the outcomes might surprise you unless you've been around this kind of wheel a few times. And guess what the common denominator was? The number one killer wasn't fighting. It was contempt and resentment, the ones that stored it up. And the most common way it showed up in men was stonewalling, shutting down, going quiet, completely checking out of the conversation when it got hard. For example, you're tired. She's been bringing something up to you that requires you to feel something and respond to it, and you have nothing left. I'm not talking about faking it. The tank is empty. It's just a matter of fact. And I'm not talking about a childish, I want you to know that I'm mad crap. You're literally tapped out and probably don't even recognize it until much, much later. So you go somewhere else in your head and your phone or on your recliner into your nothing box. You're not trying to hurt her. You just don't have anything left that she hasn't already taken. Maybe from her side, he doesn't care. I don't matter. I'm in this alone, but I have options. And so she thinks. There's 100 other men out there that would appreciate what I did and grovel for more, wouldn't they? Same experience from two completely different foxholes, and the gap between them is where marriages go to die, quietly, or not so quietly when they take it to social media. So, for my ladies listening, if you're listening to this and you're recognizing your man in that, in what I just described, the checked out, empty, nothing left in the tank version of him, I want to ask you something. When's the last time that you spoke life into him? Not managed and corrected him, not handed him a list. When was the last time you told him something true and good about who he is? And it genuinely came from your heart, not your latest self-help guru or small group. You wanted a man, and a man comes with a man's needs and problems. You're his helper assigned by God to build this together. And men, you're still in the room, and this part's for you too. If you recognize your woman in what I just described, that contempt, the management, and she doesn't try anymore, I need you to hear something before you go into the self-righteousness about it. She didn't get there alone, all right? A woman who's stopped speaking life into her man usually started out doing exactly that. And somewhere along the way, she got tired or hurt. She stopped feeling safe enough to be vulnerable with you. And she handed you something real and you dropped it one too many times. And she decided, you know what? Less painful to just handle things herself. And the world applauded her for it. And then handling things herself just became the new norm, right? So that is not an excuse for the contempt. It's just an explanation. It's the why behind the what. And the difference matters because one of them you can do something about and the other person in the room you can't. The only person in the room that you can truly control is yourself. You want her to speak into you, draw the line on firm ground and build your new house on it. Create the conditions where that kind of thing is possible. Show up in the conversations you've been avoiding. Apologize for the specific things, not the general, I'm sorry I hurt you, I won't do that again. That costs you nothing. The specific things that you know that you got wrong, and own up to them. Be emotionally present long enough that she stops bracing for the version of you that disappears when things get hard. Because let's be honest, it always does. Despite your better versions of yourself, you hear something you don't like and you retreat to the bottle, the boob tube, the video games, the self-affirming bro circle. You can't demand the woman you want from the posture of the man that you've been before. Become the new man first. The woman tends to follow, while the good ones do anyways. Because we talked about practice making permanent, that works in both directions, okay? A man who is told consistently in words or in absence of words for that matter, that he is not enough and that he keeps getting things wrong, that he's one disappointment away, that man eventually just stops trying, all right? Or maybe he already has, or you already have. Not because he doesn't love you, it's because he's concluded that trying doesn't change the outcome anyways. So what's the point? Wouldn't it be better to start over for everyone? Wouldn't he give you your happiness by doing just that, going away? Sadly, that's the conclusion that a lot of men come to. And eventually you'll be happy again, if not right away. A man is nothing else if not able to make the hard decision today for a better tomorrow. And a man who's spoken to like someone worth believing in, even imperfectly, even in the middle of the hard seasons, tends to rise to meet it. That's not manipulation. It's how human beings work. All right. All of us. We move toward the places where our presence is valued and away from the places where it isn't. If that place is work or a friend group or the secretary at work, let's not overcomplicate things. Occam's razor here, right? If it's that person, and also let's not forget for a second here that the enemy gets a vote in all of this. He will place the right stumbling block in the most strategic place possible. But you ladies are the defense and the royal guard. You have more influence over the man you are with than anyone else on the planet, anyone else in his life. That isn't a burden, it's a gift and an assignment. Anyway, back to the men. And for you guys, know that the overplayed submission conversation that you all want to have and leave half finished, let's talk about that, all right? The dancing around and the 15 minutes of apologies that normally come with this topic from modern pastors, it doesn't help anyone. So you do not get to claim headship without carrying the cross that comes with it. It's stolen valor, man. You can't claim the lessons of your fathers that came before you without walking in their shoes. It's not up for debate. And no, simulating it in VR or reading a book, it doesn't cut it. All right. That might bring you like head knowledge, but not heart knowledge. That's not in the text anywhere either. If you want a woman who trusts you enough to follow your lead, then be a man whose leadership goes somewhere worth following. Be trustworthy with your money. Show up in the hard conversations instead of stonewalling your way through them. Apologize when you're wrong and mean it. And for the love of God, don't turn around and expect something in return just for doing the right damn thing. Be interested in her, actually interested, not performing interest because you know that you're supposed to be there and then turning back to your phone 10 seconds later. All right? And a woman does not follow a title. She follows a man. And if you have been the title without being the man, then you already know why the distance continues to grow. And if she came to you for your title and you want to make a wife out of her, good luck. And guess what, ladies? The same goes for you. I'm talking to both of you in the room. If your man does show up and does all of these things, and he's putting in the effort, and you choose to avoid him, or worse, make fun of his efforts, then get out of the way for him to find a woman who will be his helper and not the enemy's agent. There is a long bottleneck of good women trying to find good men, and the line is usually held up by a woman who's received her crown and title of wife and then simply stops doing anything for her man at all. Why bother, right? She's like the untouchable 20-year tenured professor. What she doesn't realize is that it's a thin line that the man is carrying his cross towards. And once she's pushed him over that line, he sees that he's standing alone, and she will act like the victim when she says that the divorce came out of nowhere. The good news is that distance is closable, it's fixable, and it can be healed. It closes the same way that it opened, one interaction at a time, over time, in the right direction. It's the little things daily that add up. Think of the heart of a man as the fuel of the house's furnace. Without it, everyone suffers, but it takes effort and maintenance. Drawing from it carelessly for comfort and entertainment is going to leave it drained for the harsh winters. So what about me? I've got it all figured out, right? Not even close. But I have put in the time and I've carried my cross further than I ever thought I would need to. I've wrestled hard with this question, whether my house is in order, longer than most people know, and in ways that I wouldn't have admitted 2 years ago to anyone, let alone the wide world of the interwebs. I reached a point where I had deeply stopped trusting in my own gut and instincts, the things I knew to be true about who I was and what I was capable of. I knew what I was capable of, and I'd come to fear it. Over the years, I'd become quite a monster in the course of serving my country and my own selfish ambitions, and I let that self distrust do real damage to my family, to my goals, to the people who needed me to lead when I had basically self diagnosed myself that I wasn't fit to. Worse, I'd lost the tribe I once relied on. Those guys that would have stepped in and taken up the slack. They would have pulled me back up, strapped the shield and the sword back on, and pointed me right back to the front lines. I miss those guys. So, no. Instead, I let decisions be made by others who were corrupted by their hearts and selfish desires, and they had no issues drawing from any resource until it's expended, and then move on to the next one and the next one, always claiming to be the victim. That is one of the most dangerous places a man can be. The man who's confidently wrong is at least moving forward. You can work with that. The man who's frozen because he no longer trusts himself, that man has handed the enemy the keys and stepped aside. Many times we get to those places because the world or our families gives us an ultimatum. Spend more time at home and date night and soccer games, or I'm packing my bags and leaving because you care more about your job than me. Or we can't keep living in this house. It's cramped. The cars are falling apart. I deserve better. And if you don't give it to me, I'll find somebody who can. Sound familiar, guys? If you succeed, you're left alone and isolated in years of overtime with nothing to show for it. If you fail, you're left alone with years of overtime because there's no one to come home to anyway and nothing to show for it. So why bother? What brought me through it wasn't a single moment that I can point you to or replicate. It was the accumulation of hard work and painful failures and prayer. Frustrating prayer, if I'm being honest. It can be hard to hear the still small voice of God when there's so much distraction and urgency around you. But slowly, I was able to do the work, showing up anyway when I had nothing left to show for it. And what I concluded on the other side of that, not in spite of it, but because of it, is that I do have my house in order. Not the house, maybe the family that the 14-year-old me drew up in his head. This house, my actual house, the real one with all of its patches and even the skeletons I've named in the closet because the bastards have taken up permanent residency. I show up, I provide, I protect. I answer the call with whatever resources and wisdom I've got at the time. It doesn't mean that it always turns out the way that I intended it. Some of it has gone in directions I could have never imagined and would have never chosen or wish on anyone. But I trust, not as something I say, but as something that I practice. I trust that God's purpose is working through all of it. And my experience has confirmed that more times than I can count. I don't, in fact, know what's best in every moment. I'm clouded by my selfish needs and desires, the desires of the flesh, as we say in the Christian teachings, often in ways I wouldn't recognize for myself when I'm standing in the middle of it, because that's where we need our tribe. But honestly, I think the church and our culture have both done a disservice here in opposite directions. Having your house in order does not get you a happily ever after. I don't see that promise in scripture anywhere or in life. In fact, sometimes it's the exact opposite. Now, there's no hard rules here, and yes, a diligent father and husband stands a much better chance of providing a nurturing environment for peace than one who isn't. However, you have to be careful not to be demanding and expected of it. If it isn't your lot in life, you're not owed anything by God. Job had his house in order. Paul had his house in order from a prison cell. The men in Hebrews 11 who we've talked about before, some of them were sawn in half. Those of whom the world was not worthy. The enemy gets a vote in all of this, in your marriage and in your finances, in your kids' decisions and in your mental state, in the community around you. Greed, envy, and lust, pride are not categories in a theological book. They are strategically operational right now in and around the people that you love. They're chipping away at what you've built when you're not watching. This is a two-way range. You don't get to pretend otherwise just because you mean well and just because you don't want to offend anyone. What you can control is whether you are moving or not, whether you fall and quit or fall and get back up and take the next step in the right direction. Do the next right thing. Whether the words in your home are building something or slowly tearing it apart. You don't need a perfect record to have your house in order. You need a clear direction as a man who's decided to hold the line at all costs, and most importantly, to himself. So, as I close this thing out, you are living in a culture that has decided you are the problem, that your confidence is dangerous, your strength is to be feared, and your desire to lead the people that you love is manipulative and gaslighting. It has to be managed by everyone around you. Eventually, the government should just do it for you, right? And I'm telling you that all of that is a lie. It's told loudly, on repeat, and with a very, very specific purpose. The purpose is to get you to put down your weapon, and if you are showing up imperfectly in the revolving door, falling forward and getting back up, you're still in the fight. That matters more than the culture will ever give you credit for, so don't expect it. 3 things I want you to walk away with. Your kids, hold one standard this week. Do it calmly, do it consistently. Don't negotiate with it, and don't apologize for it. And watch your mouth about yourself and your spouse in front of them. They are practicing who to be, and you are the primary example. Your woman, be in the room with her, not just in the house. Be in the room, put something down, and pick her up instead. Ask something real and stay attentive. Ladies, if you're here listening, speak something true and good into your man this week. Give him a reason to. He needs your voice more than he will ever tell you. Serve each other without keeping a scorecard of what you deserve or what you're owed in return. For yourself, cut the self-depreciating talk. The funny failures, the classic me, the story of my life, the living a dream. You are rehearsing an identity each and every time you say it, and that identity is going to show up whether you mean it to or not. Practice something worth becoming. Fake it till you make it if you have to. Just don't stop. Paul wrote this from a man who knew suffering at a level almost none of us can touch. And he didn't write it as a consolation prize. He wrote it as instructions to act on. In Romans 5, he says, we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Suffering, endurance, character, hope, in that order. And you don't get to skip over to hope, but it is there at the end of the hard road. So is your house in order? If you're still in the fight, yes, it is. Keep moving. So to all of you, thank you for holding the line with me. We're in good company, and I'll see you next time. Sources for this episode included Diane Baumrien's research on parenting styles, originally published in Child Development and replicated extensively in developmental psychology literature, Dr. John Gottman's research on marriage and divorce prediction, including Why Marriage Succeeds or Fails from Simon Schulster, and research on negative self-talk and identity formation published by the Clinical Psychology Review. All scripture quotations were in the English Standard Version.